Hello, everybody, and welcome to Three Things I've Learned with me, Susan Dolci, where we share the stories that shift our souls. This is a show where we share true breakthrough stories from some really inspiring people, and hopefully you gain a new perspective from their personal experiences. It's important to me that you know that you're not alone, and so many of us experience the same heartbreaks and setbacks. We all have three things we've learned about love and about life and about luck. And that's the beauty in sharing our stories. So I'm a mom of three adult daughters,
Ah,
26, 23, and 20. I don't know how, I don't have teenagers anymore.
about you. About you.
It really does feel like not that long ago, I was shuffling my kids to all of their activities. I
Yeah.
chose to be a stay-at-home mom, and I don't regret my decision at all. But to be honest, taking care of little ones 24/7 is exhausting. And any me time I had was usually spent sleeping, often in random places. And when I did take time to hang out with girlfriends or run the occasional errand alone, I was struck with mommy guilt. I mean, we all have it, right? I don't
Yeah.
know why I felt like I was the only one who could care for them because clearly their dad was excellent at keeping them entertained. I have several home videos to prove it. But so even though I felt really good at taking care of toddlers, I had no idea how to take care of myself. But even worse, I didn't even feel worthy to take the time for self care. My
Ah,
guest today is going to share how she went from being a frazzled mom of two little boys to find more joy and peace in her role as mom. Harley Salazar has a BA in psychology and is a licensed massage therapist specializing in prenatal massage. She's a certified process transformational life coach, and her work focuses on helping stay at home moms find healing, acceptance, inspiration, and empowerment. Please welcome Harley to the show.
ah, Susan.
Hi.
Oh, it's such an honor to be here with you.
Oh,
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here because when we were doing some show prep, we were talking about how we could talk about this topic all day long.
Hours.
And
Hours.
and I in my little intro, you know, I can recall that like it was yesterday, and it was over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So, so if it's so fresh in my mind, and
Right.
20 years have passed,
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear you share your story.
God, what you said was so powerful about you didn't even feel worthy of taking care of yourself. And I encounter that so
Mm.
much with women that I work with, and it's like there's a relearning that needs to happen once our children are of a certain age where you're not carrying them around anymore,
Yeah.
that you even have a self to tend to because it's so easy to get lost in
Mm.
that attachment and in that caretaking role. So that's what I did. I got totally lost in that
Mhm.
caretaking role. I was a stay-at-home mom. And is it time to tell my story?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I can't wait to tell your story.
Okay, I've never told this story before, so I'm a little nervous, but I'm inspired to share it because I know that there are other women out there who are experiencing this. I loved what you said about sharing our stories and making people feel less alone.
Yeah.
So although I'm nervous, I know it's important.
We're all friends here. We got your back.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I know. So about 2.5 to 3 years ago, I got blackout drunk in front of my kids at a New Year's Eve party.
Mm.
And I will never forget waking up the next day with the worst hangover I have ever had. It ended up lasting a week, that hangover.
Yeah.
But more than the physical pain that I was in was the emotional pain
Mm.
of shame. I had so much shame because I had no recollection of the night before. Been invited to new friends that we were hoping to get to know because our class, our son was in the same class as their son. So I had no recollection of the night before. It was awful. I looked at my husband's eyes and I saw the disappointment. I felt the disconnection. And it was a level of suffering that I no longer could bear. I no
Mhm.
longer could bear. And so I fell to my knees that day and I knew that I needed to make a change. And now I look back at that night and I'm so grateful because that's not how my life really was. Getting that drunk was not normal for me.
Mhm.
I was just drinking wine at night, which led
Mhm.
me vulnerable to that evening because my tolerance was elevated. Because the only self care that I was using was my nightly, I would wake up, take care of the kids all day. And then when it was time to make dinner, I would cook and listen to music and I would drink 3 glasses of wine. And I would do that every night. And you wouldn't know that I was intoxicated or anything, but I was dependent. That's what I needed in order to keep going at the rate that
Mhm.
I was going. And I'm so grateful that that night happened because it was the first time they ever saw me like that, and it will be the last time because in the 2.5 years I have not had a drink since then. Um, so, I'm grateful for that night because there are a lot of women that are using alcohol to cope with the stress of motherhood that never reach a rock bottom moment like that. And so they don't know if it's time to make a change. And, what was revealed when I stopped drinking after, the first couple of weeks of no longer having my little crutch in the
Mhm.
evening, all of this emotion started to come
Mhm.
up and all of these feelings because I had been repressing
Numbing.
myself and numbing for 6 years, just pushing down. Modern motherhood is so challenging. It is so challenging, and we are sent this memo that we got to dive in wholeheartedly, and that now these new beings are what matter, and they do, and we love them, and of course we want to be there and support them. But I really believed that being the good mother was to give to them
Mhm.
wholly and never to care for myself. And what I learned when I stopped drinking was that that's not possible. That's not sustainable, that
Oh,
way of life. Because, first of all, you're going to have to find some numbing exercises in order to cope.
well, yeah, and if it's not alcohol, it's something else. Shopping,
Food,
scrolling.
shopping, right, right, television.
Mhm.
So there might be I'm sure there are plenty of people who are listening to us today and say, oh, well, I don't drink that much wine, so everything's okay. But take a closer look, because what are you doing to numb out? you know because that's really what we've been taught in our lives. We've been taught that our emotions are something to be managed, not to be expressed, not to be explored, not to
Felt.
be felt. Right,
Feelings are you're
right,
supposed to feel feelings. That's why
right,
they're called
right.
feelings.
They're meant to be managed. At least that's what I, was taught. So
Mhm.
all of these emotions started coming up. And I realized that the issue wasn't that one night at New Year's Eve. The issue that I needed to address was that I had taken a back seat in my life for 6 years and that I
Mhm.
was not tending to my emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical needs. Um, so that began a real healing journey for me. And I'm so grateful that that night happened because I have now created a life where I've learned that by putting my own needs first, and yes, there's time to do this, ladies. There is. We can find the time.
We'll
That
talk
when
about that. We will
we're going to
definitely
talk about
cover
that.
that in that show. Yeah.
We're going to talk about that. If you When we find the time to put ourselves first and fill up, then we can be the present moms that we want to be. We're not going to be the harried, stressed out, you know, um, on edge, short fused moms that we don't want to be, right?
Mhm.
We want to be full and present. And that the doorway to that is through you. It's not through the kids. It's through your relationship with yourself.
Yeah, what's that phrase that our mentor likes to use? You give from the overflow and not from the undertow,
I
right?
love that. I
Every
love that.
time I hear that, I'm thinking, I didn't get that until I was well into my 40s.
I know.
Well into my 40s.
Me neither.
So we're going to take a quick break here because when we come back, one of the things I really, really want to talk about is um, not just why self care is so important, but a little bit about like generational martyr mommydom.
Yeah,
Because I,
powerful.
I think this is a big thing that we need to talk about. You're
Okay.
listening to Three Things I've Learned with Susan Dolci. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on, and this is Three Things I've Learned with Susan Dolci. My guest today is Harley Salazar, and we are talking about mommy burnout.
Yeah.
But before we continue, I just want to make sure everyone knows how to get in contact with you. So, can you share your contact info with our listeners?
Sure. So you can go to my website, which is my name. It's harleysalazar.com. And actually, I think there's a link in this show with my free gift for everyone, which I'm sure we can discuss in a little while.
Yes, we will
If you want
definitely
it. Yeah,
give everybody that link. I want to make sure everybody has that.
fantastic.
So, we were talking about giving from the overflow and not the
Mm,
undertow, and how moms really need to, it's just so important for them to
yeah,
have time for self-care. And the self-care, even that definition can range from all sorts of things.
I
But
know.
before we talk about that, I want to touch a little bit on what I like to call like the martyr mommy,
Yeah,
which from like that was my mom. And it was I think it's sort of a generational thing,
I agree.
I think you commented the other day on how Glennon Doyle in her book Untamed said something about how every mother, every generation gets a new memo about
Yes,
what a mother is supposed to look like, and that's how we learn to parent, right? Is by how our parents parented us,
exactly.
unless we take the time to explore new methods and say that didn't work for me. I want to do something else, and I think so many of us fall into this, like you said, um, we're only being good moms if we've given everything we have and there's nothing left. And
Right.
that's, do you think about it, that's so counterproductive.
Totally.
So, why are moms so starved for self care?
Well, because they've been spending their time caring directly for something that's outside of themselves, and that is the focus. It's like our light goes right to that baby when that baby is born, and it's so beautiful and it's so wonderful, and babies require so much care that there's no time. And I do want to just speak to the moms of really young babies and kids for just a moment, because it's different. The women that I work with mostly have older kids, because you're in it, you're in the thick of it, the women who have the really young babies, and you're just looking for moments, just moments to take for yourself, maybe not hours, but moments. And I feel you, and you'll get to a point, right,
Yep.
where you have more time to get back to yourself. But I just think that early infancy, when they're so dependent on us, if you choose to be a stay-at-home mom, that there's a giving over to that baby, of care, and that's where the focus lies. And I also think that it's the message that we get, that that's the right thing to do. We don't have the wisdom, of, no, you need, if you don't want to burn out, you need to also take time for yourself. And I also just think women have been doing it since, women are stuck with that job, and they do it, from generations past, and women make it look easy. Women have a way of hiding what's really going on. And so you think, oh, that's the way to do it, until you try it in your own life. And then one day you look around and you realize that there's a you that's been missing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
the I think the hard thing with the infant stage too
Right.
is because you have just stated this little being for 9 months, that they
Right.
still sort of are an extension of your body.
Exactly.
And it kind of takes a little while to, when they start to become independent, and they start walking and they start talking and they start
Yeah.
talking back. And then where where like, maybe I don't want you so attached to my body anymore. Maybe give me a little
Exactly.
space.
Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, it makes sense because they are so physically dependent on you
Right.
when they're
Right.
little.
Right. And so when is the moment? I feel like our culture should define a moment of, okay, moms, they are no longer dependent on you, for life. They can breathe outside of you, they can eat outside of you.
Yep.
Now is time to take some of that energy and put it back to yourself. But no one tells us that. So if that's what we're doing for that period of time, we just keep trying to do it, but in different ways. And we try to be better and, more creative in ways to serve our kids, whether it be, choosing certain activities, or doing, arts and crafts projects with them, which is all great. And,
Yeah.
if you have the energy to do it. But if you're burnt out because you're forced to give, even though you don't have the energy, that's when resentment comes in. And then you're not the
Yes.
mom that you want to
Mm-mm.
be because you're not enjoying that arts and crafts project if you're not refilling that tank. Burnout happens when we give more energy than we have.
Yeah.
So I like to teach women you need to fill up your energy tank. It's great if you do it first thing in the day too. We can, talk about how to find time, because then you're more resilient to that burnout. You can give because you're full
Hmm.
instead of, like you said, giving from the undertow.
When you first when so you had this realization like, wow, I
Yeah.
need to, you came up, all the emotions came up, and then you're like, I am not taking care of myself, I
Yeah.
need to start doing this. How did you have any guilt? Did you wrestle with any mommy guilt of like,
Yes.
and how did you get past that part? Because that, I really struggled with that.
I know, and a lot of moms that I know struggle with this, and so I think that what it takes is the action of doing it a couple of times and a perspective shift.
Mm,
Because I think when you're in it and you really believe that taking that 1 hour away from your child, if you're lucky enough to have support from your partner or a grandparent or a babysitter, um, the perspective that that child is not going to be okay without you for that hour, is that true? Is it true? And usually it's not true. They're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. They're going to
mhm,
be okay. But so that's the first thing. But to do it for the first time, it's going to hurt. You're going
mhm,
to feel that guilt. But for me, I knew that my path was to healing myself, and I knew that I wanted more. And so I hired a babysitter, and I left to go to the gym, and I think I cried walking down the street, because to put myself first and to leave him with someone else, I felt like I was doing something wrong.
mhm.
But I went, and sometimes it's in the action, right? The action of doing something is where you get clarity. I went, I
Exactly.
came back. He had a huge smile on his face. He had the best time. We were able to welcome this incredible young woman into our lives to sit every once in a while. And then I felt better. And so I realized that perspective shift. He's okay if I take time for myself. Actually, he's better because now I have the energy that he needs.
Mhm. And I think, like, we always think that they're gonna like, I don't, maybe because I did this as a kid, because I was always babysat by family members, but that they're gonna be miserable the whole time.
Right.
And
Right.
it's good for them. And so there's so many fine young people out there that can entertain and they love being with kids.
Totally.
And it's just as good for them to have
Right.
time away from you as it is
Right.
for you to have your me time.
And it's good for them, it's becoming a little more comfortable with them being uncomfortable in that first moment. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That my being whole was more important than that 5-minute period where he had to adjust from me to this incredible, young, vibrant, creative sitter that was going to entertain him for 2 hours. That
Right.
5 minute of him being a little uncomfortable is worth it. Me becoming more comfortable with those 5 minutes is worth me getting to be whole, you know?
Mhm.
So getting more comfortable with the discomfort, because before it was like, oh, you're uncomfortable. I need to make it better. I need to make it better. I need to make everything better.
That's right. We have to fix it all for them. They can't be
Exactly.
sad. We have to fix every uh, sad emotion, bad emotion, skinned knee. And that's just not,
It doesn't serve them.
it doesn't serve them. Yeah. Um, I know we talked a little bit when we were yesterday about, we've all heard about helicopter parents and that sort of thing. And my kids definitely were raised in the generation of so many, so many helicopter parents.
Mhm,
And they went to a school where in the fourth grade,
mhm,
it was the three teachers in the fourth grade were really super strict, and it was like that was the age of accountability and responsibility, and
mhm.
that's when you stopped checking to make sure their homework was done, and you weren't looking in their backpacks for the stuff they didn't put in there, and you were totally hands off. That was such a huge aha moment for me, because you just want them to succeed and you want them to feel safe, and
Yeah,
no, they're going to go to school, they're going to forget something. You're
yeah,
not going to bring it to them. Or maybe
yeah,
I had a rule. I had the you can forget something once rule. And
yeah,
then, but
yeah.
from then on, if you forget it, you have to understand the consequences.
Right. Right.
This is your job.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so no, the new thing, uh, actually, it's not so new. I've read about it a couple of years ago. It was like lawnmower parents, and
You told
lawnmower
me that
parents,
the other day.
yes, lawnmower parents like to clear the way of any obstacles for their children. And you know what? You know what the epitome of that is? This just popped into my head. The whole college scandal,
Oh
the
yeah.
whole college entrance scandal. That is like what a lawnmower parent is. It's like there aren't going to be any obstacles. We're going to clear the way for you to have a
Yeah.
successful life. And that's just not reality. That is just not.
So there's just a knowing at a certain point when your kid's a certain age that to feed that to continue to feed that attachment where they can't be without you and you can't be without them. Not only is it no longer serving you, it's no longer serving them in certain ways because they need to start growing and becoming more independent. So when you can do the action, get the courage up, go do something for yourself, and then you see that everyone survived. That's when you get the clarity and you can make the perspective shift of, oh, this might be better for our family, actually.
We're going to take a break here. And when we come back, we promise we talk about this, how to carve out the time. Because, it's all, we can talk about it. We can talk, but until you actually do it, like you said,
Right,
and do it a few times so you realize it's okay.
right.
This is a really important step. So we'll be right back. You're listening to Three Things I've Learned with Susan Dolci. Stay tuned. We are back on. It's this Three Things I've Learned with Susan Dolci. And today I'm chatting with life coach Harley Salazar about motherhood and self-care and fulfillment. And we were talking about how important it is for self-care, but
Yeah,
how important it is to carve out that time, and like,
right,
how do you choose that time wisely?
right, right. Well, the number one thing I hear from moms is, I'm sorry, I don't have enough time. And self care feels like just another thing that I have to do. And so I resist it. And what I have to say to that is that self care is not a luxury.
Mm.
It is not to be forsaken, it is not to be taken lightly. We're looking for peace and fulfillment. The avenue is through taking care of ourselves, it's nowhere else. And that self care, people say, I don't have the time. And the truth is that if you look at your day, there are choices that you're making. You do have the time, but you're choosing to use that time in a certain way. And what could your life be like if you had the courage to step outside of your comfort zone and choose differently? So I think for moms, the chunk of time at the beginning of the day can be, I like to call them my little gold blocks of time. So when you wake up in the morning, and what this requires is going to bed a little bit earlier. And you don't have to do it every night, but if you can go put yourself to bed a couple nights a week earlier, maybe do a guided meditation. We'll get to that in a minute. It's the bedtime routine before you go to sleep, but get enough sleep so that you can wake up earlier. Now, ideally, it's great to get out before the kids are even up, but I know at this time that's really challenging. But you know what we can do? We can wake up, we can give the kids something to eat, put them on a screen maybe, and then, yes, yes, put them on
Not
a
a
screen.
taboo. It's not.
Maybe it could be educational, but maybe not. And take an hour, and that is your hour to go do something for yourself. Get outside, go for a walk. Don't sit and drink your coffee and scroll for an hour, because how do you feel after you sit and scroll for an hour drinking coffee? Do you feel invigorated? Do you feel ready for your day? Or do you feel a little drained and a little depressed about the world? You know? So it's knowing what certain activities give you. So if you want a certain result, you can't keep doing the same thing that you're doing. So
Mhm.
I try to inspire women to have the courage to step outside of their comfort zone just a little and try changing these behaviors so that instead of scrolling, first thing in the morning, going out, getting some exercise, maybe start a meditation practice, do some yoga, journal, and that's your time for you. And then you start your day full so that
Mhm.
when the kids come, and they will, and they'll have complaints and whines and all of those things, and you have to deal with things, you're not dealing with it from such a low energy place. You're full. So
Mhm.
you're more resilient to that burnout. Then what are you doing first right before you go to sleep? Your kids are asleep. What are you doing with that time? That's time that you could find something really delicious for yourself. You could take a bath, you could meditate, you could read for pleasure, you could reach out to a friend, anything that fuels you instead of numbs you, because the numbing behaviors of, binge watching Netflix or eating too much, how are you going to feel after? You're not going to be any different. It takes the pain away of the stress of the day, but when you're done, not only are you not better off, you might be worse off. You might have lower energy. And, these times really require a lot of energy from others. So those are some of the suggestions that I give to moms, to really stake a claim, for yourself, that you deserve to make this choice and try some of these changes, swaps, and see how they make you feel. I think that you might be surprised at how just little changes can really improve your energy level and your life and your family.
And it's one of those things where you can talk about it.
Right.
You can tell people
Right.
how it changed your life, but until you actually do it
Excuse me.
and see
Yes.
that it works,
Right.
so there might be resistance, but try it. Like you said, try
Yes.
it for a few days, give it 7 days. One of the things that popped into my mind when you were talking about um, when you're looking at your calendar and you say, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
I did a video on this several years ago, and this now, when I catch myself now, if I say I don't have time for that,
Mm.
I rephrase it in my head and I say, that's not a priority for me right now.
Okay.
Okay, so
Huge.
if I say that, that means I'm not making myself a priority right now,
Mm.
right? If I don't have time to go to the gym, I don't have time to take a walk, I don't have time to cook myself, a healthy meal. That means that's not a priority for me right now, which means I'm
Huge.
not a priority. I'm putting myself at the bottom of the list, like we
Right.
all do.
That's what we do.
Our needs get taken care of last. And
Right.
it's so, as much as we, you know, I think I want to say all the moms I know have
Mhm.
done that in the past. When, like you said, when we flip it around and we put our needs first,
Yes. And it's possible. I
it's
promise.
possible.
It's
I know.
possible. You can do it. And it's amazing on the other side. It's amazing. You never knew that this kind of life was possible, where you are full. You're with your kids, but you on your own are full. And it's just a beautiful thing.
And it also makes you a better partner.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I
Oh,
mean, if because like those nights when I would be just so tired and I would,
mm,
it'd be we'd be watching TV, and the kids were either just ready for bed or lots of times I didn't even make it to getting them to bed because I would just conk out because
oh
I
yeah.
was so tired. And then, I'd walk upstairs with my eyes half closed and crawl into bed. No time with my husband,
Yeah.
no time,
Right.
talking or sharing or
Yep.
and I know it's hard when the kids are little because it is so physically demanding when they're
It really
small,
is. It really
but
is.
it's still really important that we nurture that relationship
Absolutely.
too.
Absolutely. And you said something about accountability, and that's why I think coaching is so powerful, because I love working with women and holding them accountable for taking care of themselves. Because you know what? If you're just doing it on your own, we will put ourselves last. We will do anything for someone else. But if
Mhm.
it's just for us, then it gets put last. So when you're working with me, I hold you accountable. Tell me what your week was like. Tell me what was waking up and going for that walk like. And when you have that accountability and a coach to cheer you on, it's incredibly powerful, because you actually do it, you know?
Mhm.
So that's why I love this profession so much. And I love working with women, because people who don't think that it's possible learn quickly how possible it is. And that all it takes is a decision and a perspective shift and a reprioritizing. And that if you're willing to have the courage to do those things, that everything can shift, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just I just remember, like I said, those days where um even if I took the time for myself, there was still so much guilt. And really, so I guess the one thing I want to add to that is, the guilt's going to come up
Oh yeah.
and you just and you have to because there is this whole worthiness
Yeah.
factor, as we mentioned before, and how to get past that. I deserve this. And so it's not just self-care, it's self-love.
Right. And it's
And
emotional work. It's
it's
emotional
emotional
work.
work.
You have to uncover those beliefs that you have about yourself, that I don't deserve that. I don't deserve to take care of myself. I don't feel worthy of that. Why? Where did you learn that? Is
Mhm.
it true? It's not true.
It's
It's
not
not
true.
true. These mothers are amazing. They're amazing how they take care of their kids, and they deserve that type of care too.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I think, it's learned, and it's really, so
Yeah.
it's like your practice and what you do is so important today. Like,
Yeah.
if I want to shout it from the rooftops, everybody, every burned out mom,
Right, 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 right.
go go check out Harley's
It doesn't
website.
have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way.
It doesn't. And it it is truly, it's life altering, because it's not only going to change your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your kids, your
Right?
relationship with your husband, maybe even your relationship with your parents, because you're like,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, when you're taking care of yourself, you're not looking to other people to fill you up anymore. It's an inside job. Your
Yeah.
wellness, your happiness, your peace, it's up to you. It's not up to your parents anymore. It's not up to your kids. It's not up to your partner. It's up to you. And so when you start giving that to yourself in a real way, that's when things get really interesting, because you're no longer looking outside to fill up. And so all of those relationships improve.
Mm. Or fall away, if I
Or the
dare
ones,
say that.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. The ones that need to fall away. And that's a blessing too.
Yeah.
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 So we're going to take a quick break here, because I want to, I guess I always say they're quick breaks. I got to get over that. Um, I really want to talk about finding personal fulfillment. So now we've got the self-care down, and we're learning to take care of ourselves. So now, like, what's the next step? How do we find an identity outside of mom, and outside, especially as a stay-at-home
Mm.
mom, like
Oh,
that? um and I honestly, I can say I'm still feel like I'm carving out an identity for myself, because for the longest time you're somebody's mom, or
right.
you're somebody's wife, or you're somebody's sister, or you're somebody's daughter. And when are you, when am I Susan? When am I just genuinely, authentically Susan? And what does that look like?
Right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So also, when we come back, we're going to give you the direct links on how to get Harley's the Balanced Mom prescription.
Yes.
So everybody, you're listening to Three Things I've Learned. I'm Susan Dolci, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Three Things I've Learned with me, Susan Dolci. Today, we have been talking with Harley Salazar about motherhood and burnout and self-care and mommy guilt and all the stuffs, all the mommy stuffs. Harley has some free gifts to share with everyone, called the Balanced Mom prescription. I love that. I love
Oh,
that,
thank you.
because I love the prescription part of it. Okay, so I want to make sure everybody knows how they can get to this link, because it's not on Harley's website per se. So it's a special link that is it's on the episode description of this show on transformationtalkradio.com. And it's also available as a standalone post on the Three Things I've Learned Facebook page for this show with Harley. So there's a couple of places you can access it on the Three Things I've Learned Facebook page. And it's awesome. She's got a PDF on there, and she's got a mommy meditation. And I listened to part of it, and she's just got such a soothing voice. I'm
Oh,
telling y'all, you're gonna love this meditation, and you should, like, I don't know how I'm 56. I don't know how to keep stuff like that on my phone, but I highly recommend you, like, keep it so that you can have it whenever, like, at a moment's notice, because
thank you.
it's awesome. It's awesome. So you're gonna definitely want to go over to that link and get those free gifts.
Yeah.
So now that we've got all of the logistics out of the way, we were talking about how to get some an identity outside of mommy.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the thing. There are some women who really are homemakers, and I don't want to take away, and that is their passion. And there are some women who take care of themselves and their identity is creating a beautiful home. And so I don't want to take anything away from those people
Mhm.
because I bow to them. But then there are women who have a dream in their heart, something that maybe is calling them. And being a mom was a big part of that dream. But like you say, your identity is yours. It cannot be held in your relationship to others um, forever. It
Mhm.
has to be called home. Your identity has to be brought home to who you are and what is it that you want. Not what you want for your kids, but what is it that you want? What dream is in your heart? And it's through the self-care practices are what's going to help put you on that path to find
Mm.
what that dream is if you don't know what it is. But I think a lot of us do. A lot of us
How did that look for you?
hear
What did that
whispers.
look like for you?
Well, I was a psychology major. I always wanted to be a therapist, but didn't work out I was intimidated by so much schooling and I chose to work in media for a little while. But I always knew then I was a massage therapist for a long time. Then I was a makeup artist. But no matter who I was working with, I became there. They would just tell me their life stories because I connect with people. That is, and I have empathy. I really care for people. And so in all of the different professions that I had, I ended up being a coach anyway. And so when I took the time, when I started making some healthier changes in my life a couple of years ago, and I was doing, I think if you can only take people as far as you've come.
Mhm.
So I think the people that are prime to be help other people in their healing journeys are people who go through them. And I went through this really rich, I still am, and it's beautiful, this rich healing journey. And once you can see what the other side is like and how much more fulfilling life can be, you want to share it. You want other people to have that. And so that's what that looked like for me. So being a coach allows me to step into my identity outside of motherhood. Um, but I think it's different for everyone and it takes quieting down. I think it takes stillness to listen to your heart's desire. What about you? What do you think?
Um, yeah, it every time so, like, if you look at my trajectory of all the things I did while stay-at-home momming, which again, like I said, I don't regret that decision at all.
Me
It
neither.
was the
Me
best
neither.
decision of my life. But I always found myself getting involved in things, like, that the kids were involved in,
Mm,
so that I had something outside of, um, just mothering.
yeah.
So I was a Girl Scout leader, and I made costumes for the plays, and I made dance costumes, and I was always so it's like all of my, uh uh, job titles
Yeah.
besides mom and wife or whatever were always somehow connected to what my kids were doing.
Yeah.
Well, they're grown, and and there aren't any more Girl Scout meetings, and there are no more dance competitions. And I was like, I need, what am I going to do? Like, I don't necessarily want to go back to the corporate world. I left that for a reason back when they were little.
Totally.
And so, yeah, uh, I had the blog. That was the first step. And then wanted to do the video portion on the blog. And then that got me into just the whole, the Diamond Process Life Coach
Right.
training program. And it was just such a natural flow into that role as a listener,
Right.
because for me, that's one of my number one jobs as a mom, is to be a clear and active and present listener for my kids, right?
Right.
Because I say this all the time. um, I really believe everybody, their deepest need is just to be seen and heard. And that also applies to our kids. And
Absolutely.
so the more present, I used to have a watch. I gave it away to a frazzled mom. And it was a watch, and the time on the watch, it just said now.
Mm, I love
And and I gave it away because she was just so overwhelmed. And I was like, every time you because I mean, think about how many times you look at a watch. Like when you're a mom, you live by the clock, right?
it.
And that was my reminder to just be present with my kids. One of them comes home from school and has had a really crappy day and they just want to dump. And it's not just, not making a snack or, whatever while they're like really being present
Yeah.
and listening to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the greatest gifts we can give our kids as
Absolutely.
parents. So,
And so much
yes,
more accessible to us. I think that presence is so much more accessible to us if we are full.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just got a message that if I mention the link again, Olivia is going to pull it up in the video. So the link to the Balanced Mom prescription is on the uh, this episode description for this show on Transformation Talk Radio. And it's also on the 3 Things I've Learned with Susan Dolci Facebook page. And you should see that right at the very top because I pinned it to the top. So,
Well done.
okay, Harley, the name of the show is 3 Things I've Learned. So, what are the 3 things you've learned about managing mommy burnout?
Okay. So the first one is self-care is not a luxury. Self-care is serious. It is serious. And I know it's a buzzword and everyone's talking self-care this, self-care that, but it's until it's really a part of your life. And like we talked about earlier, you really do the actions, the rituals, the activities that bring you into yourself, then you'll understand why all the hype. So I've learned that I can no longer skip out on my own care. The next thing is that peace and happiness is an inside job. It's not in, attaining any type of success. It's not going to come from other people and accolades. It's about loving myself and making time to be with myself and give myself what I need so that I don't expect outer circumstances to give that to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I want to say is that your kids are watching. The
Mm.
last thing I've learned is that they are watching. And just like some of these things have been passed down to us, you want to be a whole person. You want your kids to be whole people that speak up for themselves and say, "Hey, I need more. I need more." So require more for yourself.
Beautiful. That's just so spot on. So, thank you, Harley. This has been awesome. Like I said, we could
Such a
talk about
pleasure
this
to be
all
with you.
day.
I know, I know.
Thanks for being on the show. So, I want to make sure everybody knows for more information on Harley's services, go to harleysalazar.com. That's HarleySalazar.com. I practiced that.
Good job.
Thanks, Harley. You've been listening to 3 Things I've Learned with Susan Dolci. For more information on how to mentor with me, you can go to my website at susandolci.com, where you can sign up for a free 30-minute clarity call. And you can also sign up for my newsletter, where I feature exclusive info on my upcoming guests. We all have a story to tell, right? We can live in the story or we can transform the story. It's your choice. Change your story, change our world, #Storyfield. Thanks, everybody.